Does anyone have the link for Ben Shabibi? You're being lied to about Israel.
The things that we have been seeing on our screens from Hamas are atrocities, obviously. But the media have said that these atrocities, they're really missing context. The context...
Who's saying that? Like me, I'm saying that, but who else is saying that in the media? I almost want to see, hold up, what he actually posted. Do we have any access to see what the article titles were that he was looking for with context? Oh, the global context of the Hamas-Israel war. The Hamas attack is a sign of a new world order. So Ben is upset. I assume that this is not going to be pro-Palestinian at all. But for Ben, he's upset that even context exists, okay? He wants you to go, honestly, you just fucking sit there and you eat it, okay? That's what we need. China has become more bellicose towards Taiwan. India embraced a virulent nationalism. Israel formed the most extreme government in history. Hamas brazenly attacked Israel. All these developments sign the world may have fallen into a new period of disarray. A weaker U.S. Wait, this context is most, but still powerful. So it's just talking about context with respect to like America's, wait, the entire context in this article is just like America's power is waning. It's not even fucking giving like any kind of analysis on how the situation unfolded. So the first one he used is from the New York Times, which is not even about like offering a historical perspective as to why this happened. It's not like, oh, this was the apartheid state or anything like that. It was just simply America has lost power. And then the other one is from Arab Center, D.C., Arab Center, Washington, D.C., the Hamas attack on Israel, context, analysis, and potential repercussions. Okay, Hamas's political objectives and motives. Okay, this one actually does offer context. This one does offer actual context as to why, what Hamas's goals are, why this attack happened, which I think is perfectly valid, by the way. But it is pretty funny. Geez, that's not what he's saying. He's saying the media is missing context despite what it says on the news. Yeah, but the arguments he's using aren't even offering context.
Missing
anyway,
context.
Let's continue. Maybe I'm jumping too hard.
The context they are providing, well, that context is a bunch of lies.
Yeah, there's fucking bullshit. Hey, dude, that's what I mean. No, I was right. He literally is saying, oh, the media is offering context. They're lying on behalf of Palestinians. They're lying on behalf of Hamas. No, they're not. One of the two articles you used actually did that, okay? And they weren't justifying Hamas's actions. They were simply offering real historical analysis. And it was from Arab Center, D.C. The fucking New York Times article you used did not even do the thing that you're mentioning. All right, let's go.
There are 4 myths generally propagated by the left around the history of Israel and the Palestinians. These myths matter because they lead people into a peculiar moral relativism whereby attempted murder or successful murder of Jews is excused.
Bullshit. Absolutely fucking bullshit. First of all, the idea that this is exclusively anti-Jewish murders or whatever is a false narrative. Let me tell you exactly why. Because guess what? In plenty of areas in the surrounding region of Gaza, in Israel proper, as we consider Israel proper, there are kibbutzes, okay, for sure, like these communal formations. But you know who else is out there who also tanks a lot of the hits against or from Hamas? Motherfucking Bedouins, okay? Purposefully left to starve by the Israeli government. Bedouins who are considered Palestinian citizens of Israel. So no, it's not an anti-Jewish action. Even this last October 7th military operation was not. The plural of kibbutz is kibbutzim. I know. Sorry. You're right. Kibbutzim. Okay? So even in that situation, it's not like directly an anti-Jewish action or anything like that, okay? It was bad. I have condemned it time and time again. It was a massacre. It was ruthless slaughter in some of these neighborhoods, okay? Unjustifiable, totally. But the idea that this was like simply an anti-Jewish action is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It is a violent retaliation against Israel, okay? You are the one who is adding the Jewish context to it because you want to make an argument off of it to basically always tie the international Jewish community back to Israel, which is anti-Semitic.
Meanwhile, the evil human rights violations of the Palestinians are minimized. Myth number 1. Israel is historically Muslim territory.
That's not true. Israel is not historically Muslim territory. I don't think anybody ever says Israel is historically Muslim territory. As a matter of fact, every historian, unless they're a fucking charlatan like Ben Shapiro or, Dennis Prager or whatever the fuck, will always say Israel used to be known as historic Palestine. Under the Ottoman Empire, it was an area where Jewish people, Christian people, and Muslim people peacefully coexisted.
This is a pure and absolute lie.
He's saying that it's a myth? No, dude, but it's not. People don't say it's Israel's Muslim territory. They do not say that. That is not a thing that people say. It was a region under the Islamic Caliphate, under the Ottoman Empire, certainly, but it was not an area specifically for Muslims. So his first myth is a myth because it's not a thing that people say.
Muslim territory.
He's doing a fucking straw man.
This is a pure and absolute lie. Israel is historically Jewish territory. According to the Bible and certain interpretations of contemporaneous archaeology, Joshua entered the land of Israel in 1400 BC.
Yeah, okay. The 1400 BC argument is fucking psychotic. You want to know why it's fucking psychotic? Because it's 1400 BC, man. Are you fucking stupid? Are you insane? You cannot make this argument for anything else. Dude, Native Americans have a much closer history to every fucking area that Ben Shapiro has lived in this country, from California all the way to fucking Florida, okay? There is no land back movement in that regard where the Israeli forces are totally just in fucking depopulating whoever the fuck lived there for hundreds of years by saying, well, 3,000 years ago, it was mine. That is a psychotic fucking take, unless you believe that the world is Turkish, in which case, maybe he's not wrong. The entire world is actually technically Turkish, including the Native Americans that actually are of Turkic origin, okay? Hold on 1 second. I have to play this. Hold on. Unless Ben Shapiro is going to make the argument that Native Americans were actually Turks that crossed when the continents were together, and therefore technically all land that Native Americans have inhabited technically belong to the Turks, then in which case I do agree with him, because let's be fucking really real. The entire world is Turkish except for the Hungarians. They betrayed the Turks by acting like they're more than Turkish because they're Christian. So the entire world technically is Turkish except for the Hungarian population. And we should parse it out evenly, starting with Crimea and historic Palestine. That's right. Native Americans are Turks, Flexicans are Turks, Filipinos are Turks, Pinoy gang. Yeah, that's right. Except for the Hungarians. Never forget, Hungarians are not Turks because they betrayed their genetic haplogroup by acting like they're above it all, okay? Oh, yeah, look at us. We're Christian. We're totally different. Majar! All right, sorry. Let's continue. What a ridiculous argument. It's such a stupid argument because, let me tell you something. The reason why this is a dumbass argument is, like, you can make the argument to colonize whatever fucking area you want to in Africa. You can just be like, sorry, we all came from Africa. All humans came from Africa. You go back far enough in time, you could just take over the entirety of Africa and say, it's your fucking land. That's nuts.
The Kingdom of David was founded around 1000 BC. The first Temple of Solomon was built in approximately 957 BC. The second temple was built in approximately 515 BC. The Hasmonean dynasty was founded in 166 BC. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 BC, and the Jews exiled from Israel in 136 CE after the defeat of the Bar Kokhba revolt. The Romans, in an attempt to shame the Jews, renamed the area Palestine as an insult after the Jews' historic enemy, the Philistines. Even during the exile, there was continuous Jewish presence in the land. Islam, which is the religion of the Palestinian Arabs, was not even founded until the 7th century CE or AD. No independent Arab state has ever existed in the area known as Palestine.
Brother, you can't glance over 2,000 years of history. And once again, I'm glad I talked about the origination of this argument because it's a stupid one. And let me tell you why it's a stupid one. Because the idea that Jews are native to Palestine is not an argument that Theodore Herzl made, okay? Theodore Herzl very clearly defined Zionism as a colonial movement, okay? Theodore Herzl openly stated that there were natives living there when he wanted to first purchase Israel proper, the area that you know as Israel, historic Palestine, from the Ottoman Empire, and certainly after he got his wishes from the British Empire. You cannot fucking make an argument by going, my source? The Bible? Have you heard of it? That's ridiculous. That's fucking ridiculous. There is no justification for this, especially over 3,000 fucking years. So that's already a ridiculous argument to make. And then secondly, the argument is not even being made by those who were the founding fathers of Zionism. That's right. Theodore Herzl did not believe that they were natives. That's precisely the reason why the originations of Zionism, like while they were deciding on where to go, they thought about Uganda as another place as the Jewish Holy Land, or at least not a Holy Land, but a Jewish area that you could populate as a nation state for Jews all around the world. And also Argentina Argentina, and Alaska, okay? The Holy Land justification is just simply a way to motivate people to be with it. It's a way to globalize the cause. That's it. It's like a backronym. You know what I mean? You got the land, and now you're just making up mythology surrounding it. Now, of course, Ben is a well-read individual, so it's rather odd for him as a well-read individual to just, I don't know, go along with such ridiculous marketing proposals in an effort to engage in ad hoc justifications. Exactly. But who knows? Who knows?
No independent Arab state,
but regardless, this is, insane,
has ever existed in the area known as Palestine. Myth number 2. Israel is the...
Again, for a much longer period in time that is like infinitely more historically relevant, there were Jews and Christians and Muslims living there. Okay? That's right. Under the Ottoman banner. That area was controlled by the Islamic Caliphate that was under the Ottoman Empire. For those of you who also don't know, additionally, the Ottoman Empire was always very friendly to Jewish people. Anyway, let's continue. It's irrelevant.
Cause of the failure of land partition in the Middle East. This is, again, a pure lie. In 1917, the British promised the Jews the entire area of Palestine. At the time, Israel and Transjordan, which is today's Jordan. In 1920, the Arabs began pogroms, a mass murder of Jews.
The Arabs began pogroms in 1920s? Okay, going forward, everything that Ben Shapiro says, just substitute Arabs and Zionist forces to understand the historical accuracy. So, was there violence? Absolutely. Part of the reason why there was actual violence on the ground was because of land grabs. There were moments where the Arabs themselves were unironically defending and hiding Jews from the British military. It is ridiculous. It was violence that they were subjected to by Britain. There were also violent factions, violent Zionist brigades that were forcibly trying to remove certain Arabs from areas that they wanted. But overall, the idea that this was Arabs doing pogroms is ridiculous. It is historically revisionist. This is in the 20s. I assume if he's saying this in the 20s, then what the fuck's he going to say? That the Nakba was a necessary thing to do? I assume that that's where he's going to go to. But ultimately, these riots were being conducted against the British mandate. It was conducted against British forces. So it's not against Jewish people at all. Remember, 13% of the population at the time was already Jewish in historic Palestine.
In Jerusalem, as a sign of anger at the British mandate in Palestine. In 1922, the British government, in response, announced in a white paper that the Transjordan area, 70% of Palestine, would be sliced off and made an Arab state. That would become Jordan. In 1937, the Peel Commission recommended a rump state for the Jews, in which the British would retain control over Jaffa and Jerusalem, the Arabs would get the entire Negev and nearly the entirety of Judea and Samaria, and the Jews would get a tiny swath of territory along the coast, including Tel Aviv and Haifa. In 1939, the British, in response again to Arab pressure, restricted Jewish immigration to Palestine.
Is he saying the Arab pressure restricted Jewish immigration to Palestine? The Arab pressure? The Arabs could pressure the British? Wait, hold on. First of all, it's pretty funny that he's saying that as someone who lives in America, obviously, because Britain's new policy vis-a-vis Palestine on the eve of the war in Europe was clearly aimed at appeasing the Arabs. Convinced that for the Arabs, Jewish immigration formed the crux of the Palestine problem, Britain decided to, in 1939, limit the scope of this immigration. All matter of immigration at this point is being conducted with the specific purpose of ethnic displacement, and more violent means of ethnic displacement will come. However, having said that, limiting Jewish migration into that area at the time was not specifically just to that area at the time. It was also happening to the United States of America. Jewish people are trying to escape. It's making it seem like Arabs knew that, the Holocaust was going to happen, and then that is the reason why they were stopping Jews from coming in or something like that, which is ridiculous.
The Nazis began World War II and just before the Holocaust. Nonetheless, the Jews sided with the Brits, the Arabs sided with Hitler.
The Jews sided with the Brits and the Arabs sided with Hitler is a funny way to cover this. Oh my God. He's leaving out how Britain promised Arabs that they would give them the right to self-determination of their own countries after World War I and went back on that promise with Palestine. Yes, that is also another part of the puzzle. Anyway, let's continue.
In 1948, the British mandate ended and Israel declared its independence.
And nothing happened. Okay, got it. So, all right. So we were right. He's not talking about the Nakba. It's not a part of it. It's just just kind of happened. Israel declared its independence. That's it. Kind of a jump there. I don't know what happened there. Is there nothing that happened in between? There was no process in which, like, I don't know, certain things occurred. Relatively important formative years, no? Ignored by the UN, Mizrahi Jews survived pogroms and expulsions too. Persecution of the Middle Eastern Jewry has been denied for a lengthy period, according to historians advocating for a more inclusive Jewish memory. Surrounding Cairo's Tahrir Square, houses confiscated from Jewish families host Egypt's top foreign embassies. To this day, ambassadors from Germany, Switzerland, and the United States work and live in homes expropriated from Jews after 1948, while their formerly Jewish-owned homes became the Great Library of Cairo and government offices. The expulsion of 850,000 mostly Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews from Arab and Muslim countries took place before, during, and after the Holocaust. As nationalist Arab leaders aligned with Nazi Germany in the name of oil and expelling the British, Jewish communities were targeted for pauperization, expulsion, and murder. Despite the region's centrality to Jewish history, the narratives of Middle Eastern Jews have long been considered supplemental in collective Jewish memory, as well as the rest of the world. One of the reasons of the marginalization of their accounts is the Mizrahi Jews developed different ways of telling their stories, according to historian and journalist Edwin Black. The Sephardic and Mizrahi communities have always been insular. Black told the Times of Israel, at the time in most major Jewish organizations, our collective memory is an Ashkenazic collective memory. Okay. Arab nationalist movements have made mistakes, I think, in my opinion. They've made allegiances with British and French colonial occupations as well, thinking that this would offer them some level of freedom, and that was wrong. I think that it is also wrong to suspect that any other allegiance would help them. I fucking hate Ben Shapiro, but he's objectively correct when he says Jews face pogroms. Yes, one thing to always consider whenever Ben Shapiro talks about all Arab nations is looping them under the same aspirations and then tying that back to Palestinians and making it seem as though it is the wrong of Palestinians that Palestinians individually have committed when talking about, like, Moroccans pushing out Jewish people from their population or some shit. In many circumstances, as I've talked about before, Zionism and Arab nationalism simultaneously occurring was the reason as to why so many Arab countries that previously had no issues with peacefully coexisting with Jewish people, that were historically considered safe havens for Jewish people, were engaged in mass expulsion, which was unjustifiable and it was unacceptable. Okay? In most of those circumstances, the mass expulsions occurred still under colonial rule, okay? Under the British Mandate. So that's something to always consider. It is an improper way of claiming that all of the actions that Zionist forces took leading up to the Nakba and during the Nakba were totally justified because of the constant state of threat that Jewish people were subjected to due to other Arab nationalist movements. Avi Shleim says he has proof of Zionist involvement in the 1950s attack on Iraqi Jews. Oh, this is possible Mossad bombings, which is a way to instill fear in Jews living in Iraq that made them feel uncomfortable and want to move to Israel instead. I don't really care about this personally. I read a little bit about it. I think it's overall inconsequential. Israel was bombing Arab synagogues in Iraq because Arab Jews weren't Zionists at first. Palestinian militias had to protect Jews in Lebanon. They wanted to frame their Arab leaders. Plus, anti-Semitism became a thing in the Arab world when many Jewish citizens were becoming Israeli spies and forming Zionist underground groups. Okay, let's get back to the video. I will admit, I'm getting bogged down in areas that I am not 100% super strong on with respect to Israeli nation-state development. And this is causing me to hyper-focus on issues that Ben Shapiro is having with his arguments where he's skipping multiple important steps, like the Nakba. The fact that he jumped over from British Mandate to 1948 without ever talking about forcible expulsions and mass murders and the most moral army is ridiculous. The most moral army sending flyers out before they did such atrocities in Palestinian villages is ridiculous. It is almost akin to, I won't say it, but I mean, it's just a lot of ethnic displacement occurred in this time frame that he is just simply not mentioning because it would look bad.
The British Mandate ended and Israel declared its independence.
David Ben-Gurion read the Proclamation of Independence to 13 other members of the Israel Provisional National Council. Israel had taken its place among the nations of the world.
In 1964, with the Arabs still in full control of the Gaza Strip and West Bank, the Palestine Liberation Organization was founded, calling for the destruction of Israel. Here is a contemporaneous British report on the first chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization.
One of the most extreme anti-Israeli politicians in the Arab world, Ahmed el-Shukeri. the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization. As the spokesman for 1 million Palestine refugees, he's fanned the flames of hatred for Israel with unflagging energy.
This is such a funny thing to fucking mention without like talking about the many legal representatives of the state of Israel saying literally identical shit about Palestinians in general. And there are way more contemporary examples of just openly fucking saying that Palestinians are shady, Arabs are sneaky, Arabs are dirty. Wow, how did there become 1 million refugees, Ben? It's been 3 minutes. Why are there 1 million Palestinian refugees, Ben? How did they become refugees, you think? Like, how did that happen? It seems like you skipped something there when you're in your little history lesson. I wonder how they became fucking refugees.
World, Ahmed Elsman for 1 million Palestine refugees, he's fanned the flames of hatred for Israel with unflagging energy.
In 1967, the Arab League announced the 3 no's: no peace, no recognition, no negotiations, with all of Israel's enemies mobilized.
Wait, what the fuck? Dude, there's no way that this is how he's I mean, it's a short video. I forgot what the main point was. The main point was what?
Religion
What
of the
what is
Palestinian
he addressing again? That land partitioning failure is Israel's fault? Okay, so I guess he's saying that it's not Israel's fault.
The Palestine Liberation Organization.
Because, oh, okay, so he's trying to present every instance of land partitioning as not Israel's fault, but instead the Arabs' fault. And he's doing this by saying Jews were harmed under British mandate, and he's portraying the Arabs as like siding with the Nazis. And then he's saying that, I mean, he didn't say that the Nakba happened, but he just like kind of skipped that point. And then he turned around and said, you know, the nation state was formed. The Arab League said no peace, no recognition, no negotiations. That's really cool. What happened? 1967. We skipped from 1948 to 1967. Got it. Okay.
Of Israel's enemies mobilizing against it, Israel launched a preemptive strike on the Egyptian Air Force, inaugurating the 1967 Six-Day War.
Yeah, so at least according to the military commanders in the immediate aftermath and literally Israeli officials, the preemptive 1967 war was, they call it a preventative first strike, but as far as we understand, there was no indication that Egypt was ever going to attack Israel, that they had any capacity to do so or any indication that they would do that. So they did a preemptive attack. They destroyed the air forces of all the surrounding nations and then openly stated that there was no shot that any of these countries could do anything anyway. And also on top of that, openly stated that they didn't think that Egypt could ever attack or were even interested. This is not even like Israeli officials. American officials have said the same thing. And also so have Egyptian historians as well.
With Israel gaining miraculously the Sinai Desert, the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, Judea and Samaria, now known as the West Bank, as well as the entirety of Jerusalem. In 1973, the Arabs launched all-out war again, this time on Yom Kippur. Israel survived and gained territory. In 1979, Israel gave the Sinai back to Egypt in return for peace.
That was so chill of them, so kind.
In 1993, Israel agreed to the Oslo Accords, which promised a step-by-step process to establish a Palestinian state. In 1998, Israel conceded.
Yeah, what happened to that fucking guy that did it, you think? Yeah, okay. Every single thing that he's saying from this point on is a lie, okay? Every single step of the way throughout the Israeli history, there were acts of aggression for almost every single time. Acts of aggression committed by a citizen that created mass chaos, that from an Israeli citizen against Palestinians, that would create chaos. Palestinians would fight back. Palestinians would get angry. And then a fuck ton of Palestinians would die in the hands of the Israeli government's forces every single time. That asymmetrical war and the disproportionate number of casualties on the Palestinian side in comparison to the Israeli side has been a historical constant, okay? Always. And the guy who fucking facilitated this deal was assassinated, as you guys know, and the people who assassinated him or championed his assassination rather, are now in government, and also they voted them in. I mean, he was already unpopular for this move right here.
Palestinian state. Israel agreed to the Oslo Accords, which promised a step-by-step process to establish a Palestinian state. In 1998, Israel conceded yet more territory to the Palestinian Authority under the Prime Ministership of Benjamin Netanyahu. In 2000, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak offered Yasser Arafat, the terrorist leader of the Palestinian Authority, 91% control over the West Bank in contiguous territory.
Every single step of this way, by the way, Ben Shapiro is also, of course, failing to mention that Israel is continuously partitioning the West Bank and also partitioning Gaza. Well, not partitioning Gaza, but settling in Gaza as well. So every part of this has just been a fucking lie. Israel consistently says, sure, we're going to do fucking a two-state. Yeah, here's your territory, here's mine. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly valid. And then they have continued to develop the West Bank and done the exact same thing in Gaza as well. Israel only offered Palestinian rump states with no sovereignty over its borders, military, airwaves, airspace, water rights, or right of return. Exactly. In every single one of these talks, one of the major points of contention was to allow Palestinians the right to return, which Israel always said no to. They've never even offered good conditions, and over the course of many, many years of being victim to the asymmetrical warfare of the Israeli state, fighting against like a bunch of militant groups that are desperately trying to, through peaceful means and through violent means, become actors that Israel has to negotiate with. They have regularly asked for less, the Palestinians have, and Israel has even refused to offer that to the Palestinians. Every single one of these deals that he just brought up, Israel has reneged on that offer. It is ridiculous to say that it was Palestinians that did not agree to it, especially even the 2000 Camp David one, where Bill Clinton also said that the Palestinians refused, and yet there were people in that room who wrote extensively on the reality that the Palestinian leadership had secretly conceded to offering additional territory in the West Bank to Israeli control as long as some of their autonomy was recognized.
And an Israeli security presence along 15% of the border with Jordan. Arafat walked away from the table and began the Second Intifada, a massive terror wave that ended with the death of thousands of Jews. In 2005,
so that is also fucking nasty. So the Second Intifada is not saying that Yasser Arafat was doing the Second Intifada is also silly. This happened this happened as a consequence of the period in between the First Intifada and the Second Intifada, where Israel kept taking more territory and killing more Palestinians every single time Palestinians tried to fucking push back. Whenever Ben Shapiro talks about how Jews were killed in any of the Intifadas, you have to remember the disproportionate number of murdered Palestinians. In the First Intifada, which he also skipped over for some fucking reason, it was mostly strikes and also rock throwing. There was one or two acts of direct violence against Israelis, and the retaliation from the Israeli state at this point was absolutely unjustifiable. It was mass violence campaigns, including purposeful bone breaking, as I've talked about before. The idea that the Palestinians should just like sit back and take that is ridiculous. The Second Intifada also was, of course, more violent than the first, but was directed by some of the more fundamentalist groups that were at that point no longer interested in a peaceful resolution because they felt like Israel was reneging on the terms and conditions that they put forward at the table over and over again. Yeah, here it is. During the first year of the uprising, Israel killed 142 Palestinians in Gaza, and not a single Israeli had been killed in Gaza. That's the First Intifada. In the second one, also during the course of that uprising, Israel jailed 175,000 Palestinians. 30,000 Palestinian children needed medical care after being beaten. 10,000 had broken bones. 1/5 of the injured were under 5 years old, and 23,000 were subject to the harsh interrogation. Israel killed 1,200 Palestinians, and Palestinians at the end of that killed 160 Israelis. That was the First Intifada. There's also additional acts of terror that occur in this time frame. This is what I read yesterday, the Zachary Foster Twitter thread. 1994, Baruch Goldstein, as I talked about before, a Jewish settler, massacred 29 praying Muslims. Obviously, that was the turning point for many of the resistance movement that said, fuck it, we're going YOLO mode, we're going full-blown violent mode. 12 suicide bombings happened at the hands of Hamas. By 2000, Hamas had killed 185 Israelis and left over 1,200 wounded. This is before the Second Intifada. Then, in the Second Intifada, the uprising was still mostly non-violent. Israel killed 14 Palestinian children. So, from September 28th, 2000 through February 8th, 2005, Hamas and other militant groups carried out 138 suicide attacks and killed 1,038 Israelis. Now, during this time frame, Israel, of course, killed 3,189 Palestinians over the same period, obviously. But one thing to always consider was that there was one group that Ben Shapiro is calling a terrorist that was collaborating with the Israeli government. So the terror attacks that were happening in the hands of Hamas, the terror attacks that were happening happening in that same time frame could have been absolutely squashed, not through violent means, but through a pathway towards peace. Except Israel did not have any real interest in trying to stop the terror, because they would then utilize the terror as a means to enforce stricter controls on the Gaza Strip and also continue expanding in the Western Territory in the West Bank. Or not Western Territory, and the Eastern Territory in the West Bank. I like that he says you're being lied to about Israel and Palestine and tries to make an 8-minute video, okay? And he fails to mention that he's the one who's doing the lying. Now, he's not entirely lying. He's just lying by omission for the most part. If you leave out of this, it can, I guess, look bad. And then if you just simply say these deals fell apart and not mention that the part that was destroying the deals or never really following through on the deals was the Israeli authorities, then it kind of leaves this this feeling with you that like maybe the Palestinians were the ones who were fucking everybody over. That is not the case. I hope that much is clear.
The border with Jordan. Arafat walked away from the table and began the second intifada, a massive terror wave.
Yeah, this is fucking bullshit. Like, Arafat did not walk away from the table and begin the second intifada.
Wave that ended with the death of thousands of Jews. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew from the Gaza Strip. Hamas immediately took it over and began using it as a base for terrorist activity. That continues until this day. In 2008, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert offered even more than Barak in terms of territory, with some land swaps to maintain Jewish-populated areas in exchange for some Israeli territory.
Bro, this is fucking disgusting. Throughout this entire video, he should show the map and how much of the territory Israel is partitioned at this point. It's so ridiculous, dude. I don't know. I mean, look, if you want to get a better understanding of what was going on in Israel and what their official policy was, I highly recommend watching my YouTube video on the matter. It is called it's from last week, How We Got Here, Israel-Palestine War Explained. Now, obviously, that's a shitty title. Shouts out to my editors for that. But it got views. Chill on the editor. True, it did get views. But yeah, this video, I go through piece by piece of exactly how we got here. I think this is that video. Is this not? Oh, maybe not. Never mind. This isn't even that video. What the fuck? I thought this was the video where I talked through the expansion of the land. Okay, but anyway, that video features some of that information.
Myth number 3. Israel expelled all Palestinian Arabs from British Mandate Palestine. This is, again, a lie. Israel's founding documents asked Arabs to stay. Israel's Declaration of Independence, in the middle of an ongoing war with Arab nations, reads, quote, "We appeal, in the very midst of the onslaught launched against us now for months, to the Arab inhabitants of the State of Israel to preserve peace and participate in the upbuilding of the state on the basis of full and equal citizenship and due representation in all its provisional and permanent institutions." Debate has raged for decades over how many Arabs left the nascent state of Israel thanks to expulsion, and how many left because they were told to leave by their own leader.
Oh my God. Okay, dude. That's fucking insane. I already maintained the position that the Nakba is not equivalent to the Holocaust, but this is like a denial of mass atrocities.
Estimated 250,000 to 300,000 refugees left before their homes were even in a war zone.
Actually, I mean, this is very similar to how the Turkish government teaches the Armenian genocide. In the middle of war, they were collaborators with the Russian front, had to move them to different locations. Some of them died in the process, that sort of thing. I've learned all of this when I was in school. This is how they teach in Turkish school. They call it the lie of Armenian genocide, but that is how they teach it. The justification is that it happened as a consequence of, Armenians collaborating with Russians. That's what they say. And then they say that they simply just wanted to relocate the Armenians to different positions in Syria specifically. And some of them died in the process. That is like how it's taught, which is literally how the Trail of Tears is taught as well, I assume. So it's cool that Ben is participating in that similar thing.
We didn't compel them to leave. They left on their own will, or rather on the will of Arab leaders who advised them even before trouble started.
Come on, dog. Here, I just want to read something here. Secret letter detailing Israel's plan to expel Arabs without unnecessary brutality. 6 months after the War of Independence ended, David Ben-Gurion sought to expel more than 10,000 Arabs from the north for unspecified security reasons. Why was a long declassified letter describing that plan recently hidden again from public view? This is after the Nakba. Even after the Nakba. Like, ridiculous that this is not like deliberately designed and that people just basically personally chose to leave for funsies. If that's why they left, why did they bring their fucking keys with them, thinking that they'd be able to return again? Just, Fun stuff to consider, I guess. Or not. A letter going to auction reveals the Israeli first prime minister tried to thwart British attempts to resettle the enemy in Haifa. The letter contradicts a testimony by Golda Meir. Not only did they forcibly expel the Palestinians that left, why, Ben Shapiro, did they refuse to let Palestinians come back? If they left on their own volition, why did the Israeli government at that point not allow them to come back? Why are they not allowing them to come back to this day? 75 years, and they are still not allowed to come back. How'd that happen?
Many Arabs without a means of support has been well documented. Hundreds of thousands of these refugees ended up in the West Bank and Gaza, which remained Arab territory until 1967. Furthermore, Arab nations refused to take in hundreds of thousands of Arabs, turning their co-religionists into refugees who have maintained that status for literally decades, a situation unparalleled in human history. Fully 62% of such refugees live outside the West Bank and Gaza Strip, according to the UN RWA. Meanwhile, Israel, tiny Israel, took in over 800,000 Jews expelled from Arab lands between 1948 and 1951 and never asked for land to be returned to those Jews.
Wait, first of all, they 1,000,000% would not want to go back. What the fuck? Part of the reason why everyone wanted me to talk about this was because this was in Israel's interest. There was a obvious goal to populate Israel with Jewish people, okay? And because the Holocaust had happened in Europe, all of the Jewish people that remained around the globe, the more populated areas where Jewish people and Arabs used to peacefully coexist, were the areas where Jewish people were. Israel wanted to populate Israel with Jewish people so that they would no longer have an issue with the number of Palestinian Arabs that live there. It's also always funny when he says like tiny Israel, because like, okay, well fucking the land left for the Palestinians in that situation is even tinier. A major problem here is literally great replacement narratives, okay? I'll tell you, a big part of the reason why Palestinians do not have a right to return, while anyone and everyone around the planet could go and live in Israel and even in the fucking West Bank if they want to, and especially Jews, is because they are worried that if Palestinians were to be able to return, that they would overtake the land. That is the real fear. They are also worried about a secular nation state development where Palestinians have equal rights and a right to return would immediately mean 12 million fucking people would have equal rights to the 9 million people that are currently living. 23% of those 9 million are also Arabs, Palestinian citizens of Israel. So they're worried that, democracy would happen. And in that democratic process, they worry that the now, once again, majority Arab population in that singular nation state would do the same violent, cruel, and humiliating punishments to the Jewish population that Israel subjected them to. I do not believe that that would happen, and I think that a hypothetical violence in the future is not reason alone to continue doing the very real violence right now. You love the fourth myth? Oh, I haven't even seen the fourth myth yet. I'm worried. Oh no.
Israel is most certainly not an apartheid state. Arab citizens of Israel have the same rights as Jewish citizens.
No, he doesn't.
20% of all citizens of Israel are Arab. The vast majority of Palestinians live under Palestinian rule in the West Bank. All Arabs in the Gaza.
Yeah, wait, what's that? Never show how the Palestinians live under the West Bank because it will destroy your argument. Yeah, no, this stuff is fucking ridiculous. Yeah, no, he's gross, disgusting, pervert, fuck him, piece of shit monster. This is where the role reversal, it's not that complicated. Michael Brooks' conversation comes to mind. It's not that complicated. It is an apartheid state. If roles were reversed and like an Arab population had forcibly expelled Jews from an area and then pushed them into these two different corners, and then simultaneously were bombing one fucking open air prison that had operated where 2 million Jews were living there, and you controlled their fucking food, electricity, and water. And also on the other side, you consistently expanded into that territory where they didn't have their own fucking police force, and there were different license plates and different roads that you built specifically for the Jews. You'd be like, that's the fuck? That's happened already. That happened. Something similar happened, with the Holocaust. The fuck's going on here?
Gaza Strip lived under Hamas rule. Israel's population, again...
Like, at this point, I feel like the only difference is it's not happening as rapidly. That's it. Like, that's the major difference. Ethnic displacement and murder happening in a much slower pace, but mostly just ethnic displacement. Because let's be real. Murders have happened, of course. Like, systematic murder occurs. There is an apartheid state. That is 100%. It's just like the thing that hasn't happened is just like putting Palestinian people in the camps and then killing them. And the Palestinian people that were put into an open-air prison known as Gaza do get routinely bombed, but not to the same degree.
Again, is 20% Arab. Arab parties have sat in the Israeli government, An Arab sits on Israel's Supreme Court. There are 0 Jews living under Palestinian rule. The only apartheid state is any state of Palestine.
Wait, what? He's saying there are no Jews living under Palestinian rule? Wait, first of all, there are Palestinian Jews, but is he trying to say that an apartheid state is when there's no Jews living there? Like the Palestinians really have the real apartheid state because there's no Jews living under Palestinian rule. No, man, you gotta have a second-class citizenship to be able to have an apartheid state. What the fuck do you mean? That's an ethno-state, you fucking idiot. You're confusing the ethno-state with apartheid state, which would still be ridiculous if you were like Palestine as an ethno-state. That'd be so funny. What the fuck?
All of these myths have consequences. All of these lies have consequences.
Oh, that's it? That's all he got? Okay, that was so bad. Okay, fuck him. All right, I'm done. I'm done for today. I can't do this any longer. I'm so done. Bantustans are ethno-states. Ben Shapiro, he's like, a Bantustan, where black people are supposed to live in South Africa, would be an apartheid state. Why? Because technically there's no white people living there. Oh, okay. Thanks, man. Got it. Fucking so stupid.